Hi there. I'd like to talk to you about a very typical exercise that you'll have to do out in the field when you're there, and that is what I call witness and accompaniment. You will go to places to witness things, to witness people. You will accompany people when they're going to do something which is difficult for them. Typically in the post-conflict situation in the former Yugoslavia, minorities that had to go and ask for a new identity card were scared of the authorities. We would send people along with them, junior officers along with them, and interpreters, so that the officials dishing out the ID cards would either have to have a proper reason why they weren't giving an ID card, or they would have to issue the ID card, maybe through gritted teeth, maybe unhappily, but they had to do it. So witness and accompaniment are extremely important. Witness in an age of mobile phones and the World Wide Web with cloud cover of being able to take photographs and put them in the cloud on your thing is a very, very useful thing to do. You do not need a gun necessarily to be effective in the field. You can use a mobile phone for all sorts of things like witness and accompaniment. So, I'd like to tell you a story about witness and accompaniment. I was in a mission in Central America and I ended up being the report writer. And that's a really important job, but it didn't get me out in the field. So I was pretty fed up. And I went along to see the chief operations officer and I said, look, I have to get the report ready for the chief of mission's signature by noon so he can send it to New York, so that New York will have it for the afternoon work in the various offices. Basically afternoon, I'm completely free. I'd really like to go and do some witness and accompany work. And the chief operations officer said, look, you've got an important job. What are you trying to do? Put other people out of work? And for a while he resisted, but then eventually one day he came to me and said, you still on for this accompaniment? I said, I sure am. He said, well, one of the most important FMLN leaders, Raul Hercules, has got to be picked up in Perkin, which is at the far eastern end of the country of El Salvador. And he's got to be brought here to the airport in the capital, and then tomorrow he'll be flown out to one of the major meetings that's happening in a third country talking about the peace process. And it's like you've asked if you can play soccer and then you're told you're playing in the Premier League. This was extraordinary. I was thrilled. So I thought about it, I made my little plans, I scribbled little notes in my notebook, and next day I was early to the airport at Ilopango, and I found the pilot who was going to fly the little Alouette helicopter and jumped in. Alouette is basically a flying Perspex bubble. So jumped in, we went to Perkin. It was an hour and a bit. There waiting at the airport were a group of 4 guys, one of whom was a short, squat figure in kind of army fatigues, but kind of not. And I jumped out and he came walking up to me and introduced himself as Raul Hercules. And I shook his hand and said, pleased to be meeting you, sir, and I'm your accompanying officer to get you to the airport at Ilopango. Fine, he says. He had been wounded 5 times, and so I had to literally help him get his legs into the back seat of the helicopter. I couldn't have been more excited or more sort of engaged. So anyway, strapped him in, we take off, and we fly to Ilopango. And there, waiting beside the tarmac where we're going to land the little helicopter, there are 4 big black army staff cars with a driver standing to attention and a senior officer beside the driver. And as we shut down the helicopter and the rotor stop, and I help him start getting his himself out of his seatbelt, his harness, and we start getting his legs out, and he starts to stand up outside the helicopter. All the while, these senior officers shouting, over here, Hercules, with me this time. You were with him last time. Go drive with me. I've got some good stuff to show you. I got some rum. It was amazing. If this guy was in danger of anything, he was in danger of being loved to death, not shot to death. And anyway, he walked off and jumped in one of the 4 cars, and off they all drove. And I was totally deflated. I went back to the headquarters and I was writing up literally a 3-sentence report. What else could I do? Got in the plane, flew there, no events, got the VIP escorted him back, landed. He went off in the staff car quite happily, no events of any sort to report. And just as I was finishing my 3-sentence report, the chief operations officer came through. And he said, "How'd it go with Hercules?" I said, "How'd it go with Hercules? He's in danger of being loved to death. The army love him." And the chief operations officer said, "Oh yeah, absolutely, that's true. They very much respect him. He has fought them on 5 different fronts, and they really respect him. So they all want to hang out with him." I said, "What are you telling me? Then his life is in danger?" He said, he fought on 5 different fronts, and he never knew if he would live or die. So on each front, he married a different woman. And now we've got a peace process. They've all got together and they've said they're going to kill him. He's in danger, all right. Don't you ever do something like that in your career?" And off he went laughing to himself. He'd set me up. He wanted to kind of bring me down and not stop being so excited about the job and where we were going and what we were doing and how we were doing it. That is very much a story at my own cost. This is a picture not taken on that accompaniment job, but taken on a subsequent one. And I draw your attention to the 3 FMLN guys with the escort officer. The 3 FMLN people are all in their teens. They're all veterans. They've all got at least 6-7 years actual combat experience. And I'd like you to look at their socks, especially the socks of the young women. Those socks are from a band at the time called the Bay City Rollers. They were hugely important to fashion of the young, and if you wanted to get on well with the FMLN, you took the presence of these Bay City Rollers socks. That's what that's all about. But make no bones about it, those 3 kids were part of a team of 6 that were securing that landing site, and they were extremely professional and extremely good. The military observer who's in his 40s, that's his first time in the field seeing real people with real guns. Okay, let's go and have a look now at an analysis of the Cynefin framework and this witness and accompaniment issue. In the obvious domain, you're helped a lot. You've got checklists for security, you've got checklists for travel documents if they're going to leave the country, you've got communications checks pre-travel, and it's the sort of thing that you can detail inexperienced or junior people to do, because most of the time it works absolutely per the operation order. If you have very high value persons, you move into the complicated domain where you're needing to randomize their movements and you need to improvise communications if necessary. You need to have your regular meetings with the escort group and also the people or the staff of the person being escorted. And for each VIP movement, you must have a specific operational brief for that local leader. When you get into the complex domain, or to put it another way around, as the peace process is maturing and the locals wish to take charge of more and more of the details of travel, then you know you're into the complex domain because the situation is evolving and adapting. Therefore, you can do all sorts of things with small, safe-to-fail catalytic experiments in order to improve, with the intention of getting the local parties, all of them, no matter how many there are, to take more and more of the responsibility, both of the planning, but also of the provision of security, and you drop back further and further into a monitoring role. In the chaotic, the worst case possible is an act of bad faith on the part of one of the parties. That is really bad. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. You must just try to survive, and you must try to keep your escorted party alive. So in summary, witness and accompaniment is an extremely important job. It's a job that inexperienced people can be given, even people in their 40s who've never done it before and who you're setting up as a bit of a practical joke. And you can get a lot of good value out of getting the parties, once they start to adapt to the situation, to take charge of their own security and their own organization for transport. and all you do is monitor. And that's witness and accompaniment.